Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Source Comic Boom collaboration. Time for your weekly DC Spotlight. Talking about the books that are coming out for the week of July 12th, 2022. About 10 books this week. Not a huge week. I suppose with Comic-Con on the horizon, I don't know how much that affects schedule. I did mention previously that we have like all the books for July already. Because, the PR or press department at DC is very, very small now, so I'm sure they're trying to get ahead of the game. Going to be a weird show, San Diego this year. DC's doesn't even have a presence, although they have a ton of panels. So it's kind of disappointing. I mean, they've got so many new writers, people I haven't had the chance to meet in person. It would be nice if there was a place where they might gather, where I might see them. I'm sure I'll run into plenty of people though, but. That being said, this week, real roller coaster week. The books seem to be either really strong or pretty poor. There wasn't kind of nothing in the middle that I would say is average, either below average or good, like exceptionally good. So I don't know. It was a rough week.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. This week was a little rough. I will say though that. Overall, when because I actually did count, I think I mentioned this last week, when I actually do count the total number of DC books I'm reading, I'm actually at 60% of my enjoyment, like where I'm solidly enjoying 60%. Unfortunately, this week in particular seems to contain most of a little bit higher proportion of that 40%. I'm not a huge fan of, but in any event, I'm going to do my best to stay positive, and I can always replace my criticism with humor in my vain attempt to do so. So let's have some fun, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, even a 60% average is not anything to. I mean, I suppose it depends on what you're talking about. If you're in school, 60% on the test that's like a D. But if you're a baseball player and you get on base 60% of the time, you're a multi-millionaire superstar.
I would just give you a little bit of pushback by giving you a different perspective that in my entire comic book reading life, like I've been reading since the mid-1970s, I never, when I was younger, read every single DC comic. We're reading every DC comic that comes out. So, of course, we're not going to enjoy it all. Even if they were batting 100%, whatever, perfect batting average. I mean, we all have different sensibilities. So even, just because, comic books are ultimate objective. But I think 60%, frankly, I look back at the New 52 Rebirth. I wasn't liking everything I read in the New 52 or everything I read in Rebirth. So, this is me trying to be as positive as possible, saying that, 60% is not as bad as it sounds.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There are a number of books that if we weren't getting press previews and doing the DC Spotlight where we talk about every book, that I would not read. There's no way I would read it. It's not. It's not for me. I'm not enjoying it. So, yeah, you're right. You are 100% correct on that. So, in fact, there was one book that I read this week that I was like, I just need to stop reading this. That means I won't have time to, I won't have anything to say when we do the spotlight. But if whatever I'm saying is only negative every week, then, what's the point? Maybe I'll just stop reading it. So,
yeah.
All right. So, let's start with I Am Batman. It's issue number 11 from writer John Ridley. We have Christian Duce and Tom Derenick as the artists, Rex Locus on colors, Troy Petrie on letters. Bit of a cliffhanger ending last time, and it's interesting. It doesn't pick up right where it left off. I mean, if you look at the first page, you would think, oh, it does, but then you realize that we actually have a time jump here, and it's one of the officers, actually both of them, that are kind of giving their recap, I guess, of the events. Detective Chubb being the more truthful, I suppose, and Detective Keenan being man, I can't stand this guy. I really want to see him get what's coming to him. So Anyways, what did you think about the title?
I actually, this is one of my better titles this week. I've been enjoying I Am Batman, and this particular issue I enjoyed for a number of reasons. I thought that writer John Ridley's character work, he continues to grow the characters and evolve the characters of the Fox family, and he continues to build the mythology of New York City, the relationship between Batman, this new detective Chubbs that we're just getting to know, who basically stopped a police shooting. This detective Keenan was going to kill Man Ray, despite the fact that he was already incapacitated by Jace Fox Batman. And we get Renee Montoya ends up showing up here when she was, I believe she was the commissioner at one point in Gotham City, at one point in Gotham City, she basically relocated and had Detective Chubbs relocated to New York City. And ultimately, she's been Mayor Villanova in this issue offers Montoya the job of commissioner of New York City, the commissioner of police for New York City. And this issue ends ultimately with Jace Fox as Batman, spying on this new Mr. Spearhead character who meets with Mayor Villanova. Mayor Villanova being very concerned about this sort of hot list that exists where a lot of people that are on it end up getting killed, and they were killed by Man Ray. Well, Man Ray is, ultimately may have been incapacitated, but the reality is the danger might still be out there. And ultimately, we're left with Renee Montoya as the question showing up, wanting to know exactly who was the real killer, who killed Anarchy. And so I think this is really, I like what John Ridley's doing here. Just as a general comment in terms of how this whole series has started, going back to Future State, it started off in a very sort of disorganized, kind of discombobulated manner that we criticized John Ridley somewhat heavily for that, but I think it's starting to pay dividends now, at least in my view. We're starting to see that character work. I particularly like, this Jace Fox family. We got Lucius Fox and Luke Fox still living in Gotham City. We got Tammy Fox, who is recovering from her wounds coming out of Future State, and sister younger Tiffany Fox, along with Jace Fox and Mrs. Fox, their mother, who's running a sort of an impact facility to help women who just got out of prison to rehabilitate and get back into society. We got that character work going on here, and it works. Tiffany is she feels useless. She feels she should have protected her older daughter Tammy. We got some guilt. We got some motivation. We got Detective Chubbs, who is frankly she feels Detective Chubbs is depressed. She's not really liked. She doesn't have a lot of good rapport with the other detectives. At one point in this issue, her and Detective Whitaker are under fire upon following some leads to trying to get a hold on some gun trafficking that's going on, and they're under fire, and Detective Keenan and the other detectives are taking their time responding to their call for backup. So Detective Chubbs here, she feels depressed, she feels upset, she's lonely, she doesn't have a lot of friends. Even Jace Fox has more friends than she does. At least Jace Fox at a minimum he's got a very strong family. He's also a billionaire, that doesn't help. And we also get a new headquarters in this issue, a Helix headquarters called the Helix, which is located up below underground to what will likely be new satellite headquarters for Mrs. Fox Rehabilitation Center for women that have just been recently released from prison. So I thought, and all that happened in just this issue. I thought this was very well done, and my only regret is that I know that a lot of people are sort of maybe not given this series the credit that it deserves, or maybe let me rephrase that. This took some time to find its footing, but it's finally found. And I think it found it a number of issues ago. But I find this to be consistently the more enjoyable Batman. That might change now with Sardasky on Batman since Batman 125, which we reviewed last week and we enjoyed. But Jace Fox Batman, I'm enjoying this, and this feels like he's a unique Batman, and I'm enjoying this, and I wish more people would give it a shot. What do you think of it? Oh, your mute's on. Sorry, Jace, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, didn't realize that. Yeah, I'm enjoying it as well. Yeah, it did, and we've said this before. It did start off kind of clunky, and when it really hit its stride is when Jace Fox, I've said this before, got out of Gotham City out from under the shadow of the bat, if you will, no pun intended, the shadow of Batman of Bruce Wayne, and kind of doing his own thing in New York City. Now, I don't think Montoya transferred Chubb. I mean, it was Chubb's choice to leave because of what had happened.
Right.
But now, yeah, she feels put upon because, yeah, she left Gotham because she felt like Montoya had it out for her. And now, here she is in the New York Police Department, and all of a sudden, she's having a hard enough time fitting in there. And to her credit, it's because it's an old boys club. You have that aspect of it. She's not fitting in that way. And also, the old police chief was corrupt. He was crooked. He was, granted, maybe he wasn't, out and out evil, but he sure, was greasing his own palms and had a certain way of doing things, even if it was in contrast to what the mayor told him to do, in direct conflict even, he would do what he wanted to do. And a lot of the guys that are left in the department are still loyal to him. So there's big a scumbags in my mind as the chief of police was. So I didn't take it as Whitaker and Chubb going to meet his CI, his criminal informant, and then these gun runners ambushing them. I took it as Keenan sent those guys. He set them up. He told the criminal informant, tell them to be there at this time. We're going to have people there to take them out. So I thought it was one step further.
Huh.
I didn't think it was just not, hey, they're not backing up, fellow officers. I took it as they're proactively trying to take out Chubb and Whitaker because, again, Chubb shot him. Chubb shot Keenan. So Keenan, man, he deserves every bit that's coming to him, and I hope he gets it. So that's kind of the action part of the story. The political parts, again, I think it just works so much better out from under the shadow of Gotham City, talking about the familial relationships of the Fox family, the machinations of the mayor's office and NYPD, and you put in some supervillains. Although I will give credit to John Ridley, he's not going, way out into left field for these villains. So far, the villains that we've had feel very street level, and again, I think that suits Jace Fox. It suits the kind of tone of story that Ridley's telling. So even Man Ray, I mean, he's swinging around an iron that's connected to a chain. So that's not exactly the most sophisticated of weaponry. So I do like that. I will say that I thought the art in this issue was a little inconsistent. I like Christian Duce art. I like Eduardo Panseca art. In fact, I would say I love both of their art styles. But I think something got lost in the collaboration between the two. It just caught me out a couple times, specifically on I can't remember her name, the Jace Fox's mother, the matron of
Fox family. Forget. I can't remember her first name either. That's why I called her Mrs. Fox.
Yeah, she looks so much older than we've ever seen her drawn before. Really old in a couple of panels. And then Tiffany Fox looks significantly. She looks like she's 12 years old. And I always thought she was like 17-ish. So she looked like a little kid.
Yeah.
So that kind of threw me as well. So I don't know if that's an editorial failing or just because, we're having some artists on here who aren't as familiar with these characters. Not really sure. But I am enjoying this title as much or more than I ever have. So definitely recommend picking it up. And I agree, it's the Batman title to be reading right now. And whether that will change with Chip Zdarsky, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Yeah. All right, up next, more Batman, of course, because we are talking about DC. It is Future State Gotham, number 15. Batmen at War, number 3. Know Your Enemy, written by Dennis Culver. Art is by Giannis Milano Giannis. Cover by Simone DeMeo. Lettered by Troy Petrie. There are no colors, and I know we've kind of beat that to death here. I find it a little problematic, and especially with, in particular, this story that they're telling, right? Where we have Hush, this Hush of Future State Gotham, this future storyline that has undergone plastic surgery to make himself look like Bruce Wayne. And then we've got the actual Bruce Wayne who's back. And we've got Damian, who is dressed up like a Batman as well. And we've got Nightwing, who's a Batman. And we have Jace Fox, who is Batman. So that's all these Batmen that are at war. And for the most part, you can tell them apart because obviously Nightwing's costume looks different than the Batman 666 Damian Wayne version of Batman that's different from the Jace Fox version. But Jace Fox, his costume's not that different from Hush and from Bruce Wayne Batman. And Bruce Wayne Batman and Hush, their costumes are very similar. So it's like I have to work kind of hard to see, okay, wait, who is this that's talking? Okay, it's Hush as Batman, who looks like Bruce Wayne. Got it. This is actual Bruce Wayne. Like, you shouldn't be making it harder for readers. I mean, especially considering at this point, I can only think that the reason they're doing it in black and white, the reason they're using the particular artist they're choosing on Future State Gotham is to give it a manga feel, because these artists are certainly influenced by that sort of style. And hey, people that love manga, they're used to reading in black and white or what have you. But these are still new characters and still a new universe they're trying to get acclimated to. So if the whole reason, and I don't know if this is the reason they're doing it, but if the reason you're doing it in black and white and choosing the artist that you're choosing is to give it that manga feel, then make it as easy as possible to distinguish. And I don't know, maybe I'm just not a black and white reader. Maybe people that read manga have an easier time to figure out which characters are which. I don't know. Like, give them different thought bubbles or speech bubbles or do something. That being said, other than that, I'm actually enjoying the story. It's, as much as I have complained about it in the past, and Rocky and I have both said, we don't know why this exists. We don't know who's asking for this storyline, this future state timeline, or whatever you want to call it. We know it's no longer going to come to pass. The Magistrate have been defeated in current day DC continuity. So what the heck are we talking about here? Why does this continue to be a thing? I don't know, but I'm interested enough that I'm continuing to read it, and I'm curious to see where it's going to go. They are sort of given Nightwing a little bit of a heel turn. He's fighting against other members. He's of the Bat family. He's taken that brain chemical, the venom. If venom is the physical enhancing chemical of Gotham City, then brain is the mental enhancing chemical of Gotham City, and he's taken a big dose of it and supposedly knows the future and everything, so much so that he's willing to physically fight against the rest of the Bat family to get his way because he thinks he knows best. It's not the best look. It's not the best portrayal of Dick Grayson. I don't know. Maybe DC feels Dick Grayson's become too goody-goody between this and him being Lord of Vampires and DC Vampires. It's like, man, they really are going to crap on Dick Grayson this year, I guess. I guess they didn't learn their lesson with Wally West, so maybe they're trying to piss off Nightwing fans. I don't know. But yeah, the story, it's okay, but at the same time, I feel like if it went away, I wouldn't really miss it. This is one of those books that I wouldn't be reading if we weren't doing the DC Spotlight. So as far as the backup, it's a backup from Batman Urban Legends from last year. It's maybe a year old. I don't think it's quite a year old, with Cassandra Cain fighting in that same reality, that same future state Gotham. It was okay. It was only average when I read it the first time. It's only average here. The art is pretty strong though. So anyways, what did you think, Rocky? Anything to add?
Well, I love the backup because I like the backup more than you do. When we first reviewed it back when it was in Batman Urban Legends, I thought the art was just excellent. It was fantastic and just a real cool Cassandra Cain. I love the backup. I don't really have much to add. You echoed my comments exactly on Future State Gotham. I'll just double down on it and say that this sort of stopped feeling like Future State to me because, number one, Future State timeline's been resolved. It's not an issue anymore for us. And secondly, this doesn't feel that they're fighting. It really feels like a bunch of white skinned, black haired guys are fighting over the Batman mantle, and they're fighting each other. They're not fighting a villain. That's what it feels like to me. And because of that, in fairness, I haven't given Dennis Culver enough credit as I probably should. I should probably read this story, but I'm not into black and white. I'm not a big fan of manga. I don't like the manga style. Clearly, this is geared toward that crowd. At least I hope so. I hope it has an audience. The sales actually, I mean, all of DC sales right now seem to be really hurting, and this is not any demonstrably worse than any other DC title in the sales charts, quite frankly, because it has Batman in the title. But I'm at a loss for this. Again, why this particular comic exists. I just want to say this. This is the 15th issue, and the storyline is not complete. We still don't have an ending to the Future State storyline. We're 15 issues in. I'm openly wondering, when is Future State Gotham going to end? When is this story going to end? When are they going to defeat the Magistrate? Are they ever going to defeat the Magistrate? Is this a different Earth where the Magistrate will forever exist and they're constantly going to be, all these Batmen are going to constantly be fighting the Magistrate? This is the sort of question I have a long time reader. So DC really dropped the ball on that. Their marketing department is not very good anymore. So I don't know. It's a legitimate question when longtime readers like ourselves are asking why this title exists. It's a legitimate question, and it should be answered, because I don't. Where does this fit into the timeline? I don't get it. It's not consistent. It's completely out of timeline of the Future State Gotham that we know. And in any event, yeah. Beyond that, I just shake my head, and I just skim read this, and I'll continue to skim read it for as long as it's in existence.
You honestly go back with what we were saying before. I don't even think you should be reading it at all. You shouldn't even be opening it. But
Yeah.
if you're not gonna actually read it, then don't
Yeah.
bother. Because anyway.
Yeah.
You said DC, their marketing department. They don't. DC Comics doesn't have a marketing department anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're literally. I'm not kidding. There literally is no marketing department. There's like a couple of press contacts, and that's it. They don't. I haven't seen them spend money on marketing in a long time. They don't have a marketing department. They use Warner's marketing department, and it's in that terms it's a failure. So you say 15 issues? No, man, not 15 issues. How many different Future State limited series do we have that were set in Gotham City? You said this has Batman in the title. Technically, it doesn't. Future State Gotham, right? So we had Dark Detective,
yes,
and we had was it Batman? And then we had Catwoman.
Yeah.
And we had a Robin, and
there was
another one. So I mean, it's way more than 15 issues. Way more than 15 issues. And to your point, like, when is this going to end? You can't think anything but that. Yeah, this is another part of the multiverse, where if the events of Fear State hadn't happened, this is what the future of Gotham would have looked like. Is apparently somebody over at DC thinks that is an important enough what if timeline to continue to create this book. So I can't speak to sales or not. I haven't looked at any sales numbers in a long time. So anyway, let's move on.
You'll just get depressed. You'll just get depressed if you look at this.
I don't think the sales are as bad as people tend to think they are, but again, I don't know. Again, I haven't looked at them, so I can't speak to that. So what I do know is, overall, if you look at the whole market, numbers are up across the board. They've been growing for the last 3 or 4 years. So
American
anyway,
are up 25% overall. I just wish a higher percentage of that 25% in sales was more attributable to DC. So. But
but again, like, we don't have hard numbers anymore since they left Diamond. So I take any numbers are, in my mind, there's not really, there's no hard numbers. There's no saying, okay, this is actually how many units were sold.
Yeah, that's true.
We actually have that. We have, comparisons,
Well, we always had extrapolation of data, which we had before. Yeah. We have less of it now, but we still have rankings, and even amongst the rankings, rankings have never been this low.
Yeah, but rankings, they're not 100% subjective, but there's a lot more interpretation that has to go into it. And it's like, okay, is this a ranking based on percentage? Is it a ranking based on units? Like, without that hard number, it's really hard to say. What I will say, I wasn't going to talk about this, but what I will say in terms of numbers is, I know there's a threshold that if books don't meet, they have like a 3-month window. And if they don't meet, they'll put them on whatever, let's call it a watch list. And if the book it reaches a certain threshold. Okay, we think this book is in danger. It's not making enough money. Let's put it on the watch list, and they'll give it like some certain percentage to say, okay, if it continues to fall and it falls below this number, then we're just going to cancel it. And we've seen a number of books be canceled in the last few months. Future State Gotham's not among them. So again, Aquaman was among them. So they are canceling books that are not doing well. So I don't know, again, and those, from my understanding, those are hard numbers, not percentage. So again, who can say? The only ones that really know are the people that are inside DC executives. So anyway, moving on, Naomi number 5. This is season 2, written by Brian Michael Bendis and David F. Walker. Jamal Campbell is the artist. Wes Abbott on letters. Jillian Grant, assistant editor. Where's that's right. Jamal Campbell. Sorry, I wasn't thinking about it. Jamal Campbell does his own colors, so all digitally painted here. What'd you think?
This is my favorite issue of Naomi so far. My favorite issue of Naomi from the first volume as well. So we've had 6 issues in the first volume. We're now 5 issues into volume 2 of Naomi, and this is my favorite out of all those 11 issues. I really enjoyed the action in this issue. I thought, I'm mindful of your comments that Bendis is who he is, so that there's still some habits there that aren't my preference. But I will say that I love the art here, and I thought that I thought some of the dialogue was better than in the past. This is Naomi basically confronting Zimbardo. Zimbardo from her home world has finally arrived, along with Zimbardo's sort of version of his Justice League. He doesn't have a name for it. He arrives with Brutus, Jupiter, and Kilgore, and 2 other members of Zimbardo's team, which are unnamed. I couldn't find names for them. But we've met Brutus and I believe Jupiter and Kilgore in the Justice League run when Naomi was with the Justice League and they visited the world, Naomi's home world. They did battle there. And one of the things that's mentioned here is that Zimbardo was upset with that. So he's come to this world to essentially take out Naomi and essentially take over this world. In the way that Bendis has scripted this particular issue, he does some time jumps where he shows Naomi having past conversations with Cyborg and Hawkgirl, as well as Superman, and as well as with Dr. Fate, where she discusses her powers. One of the criticisms that was levied against Bendis in the first series, and even leading up to this one, including in the pages of Justice League, is that we never really had an idea what Naomi's skill set, what her power set, what is it? What are its foundations? What is the details? We knew that it was energy based, but there were some open questions, and here we find out some interesting things that I thought artist Jamal Campbell really shows to great effect. In particular, something called the double punch. Naomi is capable of seeing energy, drawing it into her, and reflecting it back, adding extra and extra, doubling her own powers and punch. So if you're an energy-based opponent and you're fighting Naomi, you're probably going to have your work cut out for you, because she can use your own energy against you, like she does here against the forces of Zimbardo. And she does seem to have potentially some sort of vision power. She can sort of it's unclear exactly what that is. She can kind of see. I don't know if she can see into her home world or what exactly, but we know she's talked to Dr. Fate, Constantine, and Zatanna. And Bendis does a good job showing she's gotten guidance from the other members of the Justice League. If you're someone that's into Naomi, but you haven't followed her adventures with the Justice League, that's okay, because Bendis does a good job here of just giving you the bullet points of showing you got Naomi Volume 1. If you're just reading Volume 2 from Volume 1, you know that Naomi's gotten some guidance from members of the Justice League, and she's starting to develop her powers and have an appreciation of her powers. And there's a really great scene here. I love this whole. I thought this entire issue for me, it was the most satisfying of the one I've read so far, because I like Naomi battling Zimbardo and actually holding her own. And because it's about time. We who have been following her adventures, it's only been maybe 2 or 3 weeks for Naomi, it seems, but for us, it's been it's been like a year and a half or longer. I'm glad to see her stand up on her own and hold her own against Zimbardo and really kick some butt here. And I'm really looking forward to the sixth and final issue of this particular volume. And again, I won't say that we've gotten a lot of story, but what we are getting is this is a very slow burn. But I think that, looking back when you hit volume 3, volume 4 into the future, I think that all the volumes together, they're going to read quite well together. And Jamal Campbell's absolutely fantastic. It's really well done here. I really got a sense of the raw power of Naomi because of the fantastic art and the coloring and just the shades and the whole package. This is a beautiful looking comic book. And this was, I thought, one of the better, I enjoyed reading this more so than any other issue so far. And it just goes to show you that my bias is when Bendis, there are episodes here where there's no dialogue, where Bendis just lets Jamal Campbell's art speak for itself because you don't need dialogue. And kudos to Bendis to allow Jamal Campbell to show off his artistic skill and not covering up his beautiful pencils with dialogue. And so this is the best of the series so far, and hopefully it'll end with a bang as well with one issue to go in this second volume.
I hated it, man. Well, that's too strong of a word, but this is your favorite issue of both the volumes so far. This was my least favorite issue of both volumes so far. I'm a huge Jamal Campbell fan. I love Jamal's art. I thought the art and the action here was very hard to follow. I mean, the line work is, it's Jamal Campbell. The style is Jamal Campbell, but his storytelling here, I mean, time and time again, I was trying to flip back and forth to previous panels to try to understand what was going on. Like I felt lost visually, repeatedly. So yeah, I didn't really care for it. And part of me wondered if it's not, excuse me, if it's not because he chose to put this whole battle in rain. It's raining the whole time. So we have this rain that's going on throughout the fight. And I don't know, maybe that's what was distracting for me, but I didn't think the art was up to its usual standards. And the other thing is, when did Naomi get these giant eyebrows? Every time her eyebrows were on the page, or in the panel, it was distracting me. Apparently, she got them in continuity from her father because her father has the same giant eyebrows. But my problem is that previously they never had these giant eyebrows. They just had normal eyebrows that I never really noticed one way or the other. So if they were these giant thick eyebrows like this, I certainly would have noticed previously. And Superman, he's got some pretty big eyebrows on the cover, but they still pale in comparison to the size of the eyebrows that Naomi has inside the issue. So I don't know what the heck was going on with her eyebrows. I will say that it made her look a lot older, and in a way more formidable. So maybe that's why Jamal Campbell did it. Or maybe it's just a manifestation of her powers. The more she uses her powers, the bigger her eyebrows get. I don't know. But it was extremely distracting. So there's that with the art, and no matter what happened throughout the series, I always counted on the Jamal Campbell art to really be amazing and for me to love it. And I just didn't here. But again, I think a lot of that had to do with the choice to put the constant rain throughout, which I just didn't like, because when I'm flipping through it now and I'm looking at my favorite pages, like I don't mind the pages where she's talking to Zatanna or Constantine, or where she's talking to Superman on top of the Hall of Justice. But the battle scenes, the way, and normally I'm all for dynamic panel layouts, but again, I just found it extremely hard to follow. As far as the story, so I was 100% wrong, and you were right when we talked previously about the timeline and when this is occurring. My contention was, well, I think this is occurring pretty quickly after Volume 1 was over, and she hasn't joined the Justice League and traveled to her planet where her parents are from, where she's originally from, yet, because that made more sense based on where we were in the story and the way she was acting. Based on this story, 100%, there's like, you came, Zimbardo says, hey, you came to my world with a league. So clearly she's been there.
Yeah.
This series is taking place after Bendis's run on Justice League and everything that happened. That to me, like everything that I was giving Bendis and David Walker the benefit of the doubt about, like why isn't Naomi a little further along in the use of her powers and her maturity and where she is? Why is there's all this conflict with her parents? And I was all pointing, this is still real new to them. This is still real new. No, it's not. It's not new. So all those criticisms that you had were early on that I was kind of pushing back on, saying, no, she hasn't had a chance to learn that stuff yet. It turns out you were 100% right and I was wrong. All those criticisms you had were valid. Now, that being said, does she seem to take a step forward in characterization and maturity in this issue? 100% she does. So it's a positive in that way, but a negative in that we got confirmation that the timeline is really wonky. So and it's hard to, I don't want to put blame on anybody. I know Bendis is busy with a lot of projects. I know David Walker's busy. But it's problematic when we get, 6 issues of a character not really developed and, a new character. We get 6 issues. They come out in relatively, I don't think there was any delays. I think they came out in 6 consecutive months, or at least within 8 months. We got the first, and then we don't get anything for almost 2 years, except she shows up in Justice League a little bit, but obviously Justice League, a team book, you can't focus just on her. Not much character development. And then, 2 years later, we have this. So again, whatever the reason, it's kind of tough to develop a character when she's not getting any screen time. So, and as much as I really appreciate the Jamal Campbell art, this issue notwithstanding with the battle scenes, his art does lend itself to these big kind of cinematic panels. And when you do that, you get even less story, right? Because you're showcasing the art, which is great. To your point, it's positive. This art is beautiful. It carries the story, but you have less room to tell the story, or you got to put in 1,000 word balloons like we've seen Bendis do before. So there are some issues here. It's almost like, okay, if Bendis doesn't have time to write a monthly Naomi book, then bring in somebody who can, because it's a character that has a lot of potential. I feel like the potential is being squandered. We've said this before. It hasn't completely been wasted yet, but poor Naomi has taken some hits, based on these editorial decisions, based on the fact that her TV show got canceled. I mean, her TV show gets canceled, you're really reducing the number of people that are going to be exposed to her going forward. So if you want her to, maintain relevance, you want to develop her. I mean, she is a young African-American hero. In DC, if you're about representation, you should be trying to put your best foot forward with Naomi. And I don't know if the decisions, and again, I'm not placing blame, I'm just saying these are the realities. If Bendis is too busy, if David Walker's too busy, if Jamal Campbell's too slow, you got to do something else. You got to do something else. Give her a digital first series, at least, with a different creative team, that lasts 12 weeks, 16 weeks, just to get her out there, get some exposure, get some character development.
Well, yeah, and you have a DC Direct website, and why not put a web only thing on DC Direct? All the subscribers for that could get it for free and really develop the character.
Webtoons, they're doing the Wayne family or whatever on Webtoons. Yeah. You could put it on there. I like Naomi; she has a lot of potential. I don't want to see it squandered. So
yeah.
All right. Up next, we have Batgirls number 8. This is written by Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad. Robbie Rodriguez on art. Rico Renzi on colors. Becca Carey on letters. So this was the book, I think, when I started reading it, I was like, why do I still read this? I should stop reading this. It's not for me. Stop taking the time, wasting the time talking about it when I only ever have negative things to say. That being said, I did like this issue. I thought it was a good wrap up of this Bad Reputation storyline, part 2 of 2. Of course, the cliche thing, Seer gets away, and at least Barbara Gordon got to destroy all of her equipment and destroy her computer. So, but that's not going to stop somebody of Seer's intelligence level. She'll rebuild. She'll be back to bother Batgirl and Oracle and the Batgirls again. I guess the other cliche thing they could have done was invite her to join the Batgirls. Could have gone either way, but they chose, let's have her escape and whatever. It was really problematic the way that she escaped. Right here's Batgirl, who earlier in the issue shows how formidable she is when she's fighting against the Saint gang and whatever, right? And then, again, super physically talented, master level fighter, trained by the best, blah, blah, blah. How does Seer escape? Oh, she pushes Batgirl and Batgirl falls down this hole into the sewer. I was like, if you're Batgirl and you're one of the, top fighters, granted you're not Cassandra Cain level, but you're up there, you're great, you can stand toe to toe with Nightwing. You're telling me this little 12-year-old girl could just turn around and push you and you can't stop yourself from falling backward? Like, you can allow her to push you, first of all. You can't block it or stop it or sidestep it. But she can push you with enough force that you then fall down into a sewer. Like, I was like, really? Because reasons?
Yeah.
It was the dumbest thing. I thought it was really poorly done. Like, you want her to escape, fine, whatever. You could do it in a better way that doesn't, like, it stretches believability beyond any reason. So that really was a problem for me. But other than that, I thought it wrapped everything else up pretty well, even if it was sort of cliched. I did, although I'm not a big Robbie Rodriguez fan by any stretch, what I do appreciate about Robbie Rodriguez's art style is at least I feel like it suits the tone of the book better. Like, the reason that I think I like this issue more than previous issues with Jorge Corona, through no fault of his own, it's just his particular style. Jorge Corona's art to me just feels juvenile. It feels like it belongs in a book where, it's for younger readers and it's playful and and he can put all the ink spatter he wants on over his line work. It doesn't change the fact that it makes it look like a kid's book. It makes it look like a book that's for kids. Now with Robbie Rodriguez, I'm not a big fan of his style, but at least it feels mature. At least it feels like I feel like I take it serious, and I try to take Jorge Corona's artwork seriously. I just can't. It's just too cartoony. Like whenever we see the car that exploded, Bondo, whenever it's driving down the street, it's like yeah. 20 feet up in the air because it's just cartoony. And I just don't think it suits the style and the tone of the story they're trying to tell. So as much as I'm not a fan of Robbie Rodriguez style, I mean, he's a fine storyteller. I think the storytelling flows really well. Transitions from panel to panel are fine. I never had to stop and go back. I was never confused. I just don't care for his particular aesthetic. But at least it's an aesthetic that feels like it belongs in an adult superhero book, because this book is not for kids. It is a very mature book. So, yeah, other than Seer somehow pushing Batgirl down a sewer, which was just ridiculous. I thought it was solid. I guess we'll see where it goes going forward. The next arc will decide, because I will take my own advice, and if I only have negative things to say about this going forward, I'll stop reading it for the spotlight. So anyway, what are your thoughts, Rocky?
Well, I'm going to focus on the most positive thing I get out of this comic, because I just sort of shook my head in frustration too on multiple levels. I actually enjoyed my favorite new character in this is Lulu LaRue. She is a sword swallower. Look at the mouth of this woman.
I think I blocked that out. Her opening her mouth like a giant snake to pull swords out.
4 swords. Really... She can swallow 4 swords. 4 flaming swords on fire. That's huge. Dumb. That's incredible. And of course, she spends half the issue running, because the last issue ended with Barbara Gordon and Nightwing infiltrating the Iceberg Lounge. And ultimately, they need to rescue the Seer. That's the basement of the Iceberg Lounge is where the Saints have the Seer in their sort of kidnapped and in their custody. And the big fight scene, of course, is between Nightwing and Valentine, this character Valentine, who Nightwing defeats, and Valentine insults Barbara Gordon. Nightwing handily dispatches Barbara Gordon, takes out members of the Saints to rescue the Seer as well. And in fact, the highlight of this issue is the dialogue, frankly. And I don't say this a lot, but when I talk about Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, I'm not generally huge fans of their dialogue at all. But I actually enjoyed the rapport here between Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson. Rumor has it that the pages of Nightwing were probably headed toward a wedding between Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson, and more of that romance continues to be developed here in this issue. If you are a Barbara Gordon and a Nightwing fan, and you haven't been buying Batgirls, you know what? Just buy this issue. You don't need to know the backstory, and it's just, this is a fun issue. There's even humor in it. I love the romantic banter back and forth between Nightwing and Barbara Gordon. I thought it worked very well. There's even at the very end that I think will please a lot of Nightwing Barbara Gordon shippers, where Barbara Gordon is having a conversation with Stephanie Brown and Cassandra Cain, and of course she's wearing Dick Grayson's underwear. And of course, it's Robin underwear and the green shorts. And I thought that was very well done. And Robbie Rodriguez, I think, had fun with that drawing, illustrating that. And I thought it worked. And it's those types of fun moments that I enjoyed the most in this particular issue. Now, the other things I could be critical of, you've already alluded to them already. And that is that when we're talking about Seer, this is a child that's psychopathic, really, who's murdered, who's, Barbara Gordon, they seem to think that the threat is over, that, this crazy psychotic child killer who's genocidal and who's murdered thousands of lives during Fear State, she's not a threat anymore because she escaped. We caught her computer. She doesn't have her computer anymore, so she's not a threat. Like, really? Come on. It was a little bit silly, the way it sort of wrapped up. I mean, she clearly should have been apprehended. But I mean, again, nitpick, whatever. I get it. But I'm gonna say one criticism finally, and I'm gonna reiterate it when we review Wonder Woman 789, also written by Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, is that Wonder Woman, I would argue, just like Batgirls, is a almost odd and sometimes disturbing, eclectic combination of almost childlike parody and themes with adult themes, and it feels odd, it feels off, and I'll just leave it at that. But in any event, the Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson scenes here saved it for me. And I apologize for my voice if I'm trying to eliminate some of the echoes here,
Yeah, it's a little staticky. Not sure what's going on there, but
yeah.
All right. Well, Wonder Woman Evolution is up next, Part 8, written by writer Stephanie Phillips, Mike Hawthorne on pencils, Adriano Di Benedetto on inks, Jordi Belair on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. What'd you think of this one?
So I'm just coming up here. Well, this ends this series, Wonder Woman Evolution. I have to say that this ends on a low note for me. I was disappointed in this series overall. I have to say, I'm not. Now, I think maybe the strength of this series. I think Stephanie Phillips, if I didn't know better, I would think that she's going to be the new writer on Wonder Woman at some point, because this ends just sort of establishing the fact that Wonder Woman ends up with nanites in her blood. And what I hoped was going to be the theme of this series was just misdirection on the part of Stephanie Phillips. Wonder Woman was never in a position to judge humanity by cosmic gods. That wasn't it at all. She was sort of held captive and fed nanites in her system, which this Atticus villain was essentially trying to read her DNA in order to create a better human, and that humanity needs to get better and evolve into something better. And so he was utilizing Wonder Woman for that purpose. The reason he gives why he went after Wonder Woman's blood as to Batman and Superman. Superman was Kryptonian and he wasn't human. And Batman apparently is just Batman. But Wonder Woman, he doesn't come right out and say this, but Wonder Woman is both human, and Wonder Woman is also the son of a god. She's a demigod. So getting the DNA of Wonder Woman is probably a good idea. And so he was hoping to get something out of that. This ends here. One of the other things that's a little confusing, I'm being constructively critical. The Silver Swan here already has nanites in her blood. That's part of her origin. So this Atticus putting more nanites in Silver Swan's blood, only to have Wonder Woman make a deal with Atticus saying, take the nanites out of Silver Swan and give them to me in order to save Silver Swan. And then Silver Swan still has powers and is still Silver Swan. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think I'm a little confused in that regard. It seems it just seems very this was just disappointing to me. I was hoping for a bigger finish on this. My disappointment was sort of enhanced by I thought the art was. I don't think the art is the greatest. One thing about Stephanie Phillips, she's not, she's DC. I think that her independent work, like particularly Grimm, which I've read, I've been really enjoying, and her Man Among Ye. I think her Harley Quinn has, it's been okay, but she, for whatever reason, DC doesn't want to give her a top, sort of a top name traditional comic book artist. And I think she deserves that. I think that makes this story better served with some different kinds of visuals. But there are some people that disagree with me on that. Maybe you do as well. I thought I didn't really like the designs, the artistic choices made in the design of Silver Swan here. I think this is the worst that Silver Swan has ever looked. Her last iteration in her own comic book under James Robinson looked amazing. This was very different than that. Just a lot of these things are subjective, so people can certainly disagree with me on that. So, but I just didn't really like the designs artistically, and the story I was hoping for a little bit more. Stephanie Phillips showed, the themes in here I thought were on the touch of greatness. I love some of the battles in those early battles she had, which were all taking place in Wonder Woman's head. I wish they weren't all imaginary. They ended up being sort of superfluous backstory, just filler, and they didn't really feed the main narrative to my satisfaction. But I like the fact that, this new Atticus villain, I think he's a little bit, he's just another guy that wants to create a new type of human beings, and he's got these nanites that are going to do it, and he escapes at the end. And Wonder Woman, it ends with Wonder Woman sort of looking out outside the Fortress of Solitude as she's meditating, and she can feel the nanites go through her bloodstream. So clearly, I would think that this is going to be a storyline that's going to be built upon at some point by Stephanie Phillips herself. So this, in my view, and maybe you can tell me if you think I'm just imagining or being too speculative, that I think that this might be something that future writers might pick up on. It might be Stephanie Phillips herself. I think this might be a hint she's going to be writing a Wonder Woman main line. But what do you think?
Yeah, I was disappointed too, but not for the same reasons as you. I was disappointed that we didn't get an end to the story. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm disappointed that it's coming to an end, because I sort of agree with you. It did feel a little bit like bait and switch with this idea of her under a trial, fighting for humanity with this trial under cosmic gods or what have you, and for the first 3 or 4 issues, it seemed that was the storyline, and then it all got flipped on its head. But if this is how this issue or the series is going to end on issue 8, on a cliffhanger like this, with everything as far as the nanites go completely unresolved, then I want the rest of the story. Like, it feels like this is a cool idea. Wonder Woman's been infected with these nanites. And to be clear, you had said that Atticus was looking to infect her. He never was looking to infect Wonder Woman. So it seems, right? He was always looking to harvest her DNA to create nanites that would then, replicate Wonder Woman's DNA in the hosts. Right. But based on what happens when Wonder Woman takes Silver Swan back and confronts Atticus, he's ready. Oh, well, you can take the nanite. Was that his plan all along, to end up taking nanites that supposedly have Wonder Woman's DNA? Could they somehow control Wonder Woman at some point? Like, it's not clear. Like, there seem to be hints of that. So I feel like the most interesting parts of the story are just getting started, and this is the final issue. So if that's the case, I kind of wish that this idea of a trial under cosmic gods had been truncated, and Stephanie could have shrunk that down into 1 or 2 issues, 3 issues at most, and we could have gotten more of this story, because this feels more kind of more super heroic in a way, as opposed to the other, which is interesting, and it makes you think, does humanity deserve to exist? And it's a more philosophical kind of highbrow story, whereas this issue finished up with this fantastic battle between this Silver Swan / Wonder Woman hybrid and Wonder Woman herself. So yeah, it definitely feels like there's more to come with this story, and that's where my disappointment comes from. I don't know where I'm going to get the story or when, but what I ended up feeling like when I finished reading, I was like, this should be happening in the regular Wonder Woman title, because then it gets to keep going.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
anyway.
like say, who knows? Maybe when Clunrad are done their storyline, maybe we're going to get this continued, because it just seems to me this cries out for some kind of sequel with nanites in her blood. I mean, they got to be doing something in Wonder Woman's blood. So there's potential here anyway. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Up next, we have Dark Crisis: Worlds Without a Justice League, Superman #1. Quite the mouthful there. There's a main story by Tom King with art by Chris Burnham, colors by Adriana Lucas, and letters by Troy Petrie. And then there's a backup Aquaman story that's written by Brandon Thomas. Fico Osio is the artist. If that name sounds familiar, he's the one that did the Mr. Miracle Source of Freedom series that we loved. Colors are by Sebastian Chang, and letters are by Troy Petrie. So I didn't know this was going to be 2 stories. Neither one of them is full length. It's about 30 pages, so we get 2 15-page stories here. And again, based on the fact that Dark Crisis hasn't really felt like it's gotten going, I don't know exactly what's going on here in terms of where are these stories coming from. Because these feel like complete, what if, alternate reality, multiversal stories where we actually, and I really enjoyed the first story. That being said, I really enjoyed the first story, liked Chris Burnham's cover for it, because this is a glimpse of what we lost by having John Kent aged up. And that's all I'm going to say about that. We have, talked about that ad nauseum and infinitum, however you want to put it. I'm sure people are tired of hearing others, comic book reviewers, complain about it. It's the reality. It is what it is. I know there's still a number of people that think it's going to be reversed. I personally don't, not based on the success of Son of Kal-El. But this is exactly what we missed out on. The story by Tom King is what we missed out on by not having John age up with Lois and Clark in the main DCU continuity. And this is just a glimpse, and it covers a lot of years, because obviously Tom King, as I said, only has 15 pages. And John does age up almost to that same age he is now, actually, in much less time, but at least we get to see it. At least we get to know that he's there with his parents. And I just thought it was so good. I just loved it. In a way, it's almost the other side of the coin of what we have currently in DC continuity, where John gets aged up in a blink, and we don't get to see him. We know that he doesn't spend any of his formative years with his parents, and then he's not back for very long before his dad takes off into space to fight some huge menace. As opposed to this, where John Kent does get to spend his formative years growing up with his parents, but as soon as he's old enough to make his own call, he goes off into space to fight some giant menace. So I kind of liked the duality of that. And I'm not the biggest fan of Chris Burnham's style. I thought it worked really, really well here. And I'll talk about the backup, it's not even a backup. You can't even really say it's a backup, because they're equally, I guess the first one is 20 pages and the second one is not. So yeah, I guess technically it is a backup. But anyway, what'd you think of the Superman story, Rocky?
I got seriously mixed feelings about it, because oh man, on the one hand, I can kind of feel where you're coming from, that we're sort of getting a possible snapshot of what it was like, what it could have been like if John Kent had not spent his formative years in a volcano being traumatized by Ultraman. But having said that, one thing that the writer Tom King focuses on is that, and it should be mentioned that each chapters in these 20 pages, what Tom King does a good job of is that he very conservatively and effectively utilizes various chapters based on the age of John Kent. One when John Kent is age 13, 14, 15, all the way up when he's 18 years of age. And right away from when John is very young at 13 years of age, where he's dressing up as his best friend Damien as Robin, to when he's helping his dad fight Brainiac. And a couple of things are very, very interesting here that one could take issue. And I can already hear Twitter now, comic book Twitter, going maybe a little bit crazy over this issue. I'm going to be very curious to see what other reviewers have to say about this, because I find it interesting that this is, I find it kind of cool that Tom King has a young John Kent actually hear the cries of screaming and dying people on other planets being killed in wars. He hears Darkseid's forces led by Orion, which doesn't make any sense because Orion is the son of Darkseid, but Orion's a good guy, but Orion is portrayed like a villain here who is on brand.
But keep in mind, alternate. This is clearly not the main DCU, so alternate multiverse.
Well, yes. Well, yes and no. My pushback to that is this is supposed to be a world. This is supposed to be a world that where if Superman's dreams came true. So what Superman's deprived of, and even Aquaman in the backup future. What happens? It's almost like they're the best futures.
Where are you getting that this is a world where Superman's dreams can come true? I get that. That's the point of the Aquaman story. But I didn't get that. I mean, this is a world without a Justice League.
First of all, okay. Well, then let's back up. This is terribly named. This is not a world without the Justice League. This world has man in it, and there's no evidence that there's no Justice League in it. So that doesn't make any sense.
There's no evidence that there is. There's no evidence that there is a Justice League or there isn't a Justice League. There's no.
Well, that's my point. But that's kind of my point.
You said dressing up as his best friend Damien. He's got a Robin. The costume is very reminiscent of Robin, except it's blue instead of being green.
Well, no,
obviously, but we don't even know if there's a Batman or Robin in this reality.
Well, fair enough. But we also, I guess it just seems to me that if he's dressing up like, it just seems off. Like it's not entirely clear to me based on the title. Should we presuppose that? I suppose we're supposed to. But my point being is just getting back on track. Is this is at the end of this, Superman says something. He says, Lois says to him, Superman says on the last page, I love. Where is it? He says, I was there, Lois. I was here. I saw him. I got to see him grow into the man he had to be. I didn't miss it this time. No, not this time, not for anything. I wouldn't trade this for anything. So clearly there, at the end, Superman seems to be having some self-awareness that he got to see his son grow up, almost as if he knows he has some self-awareness that he's witnessing something that he never got to witness before. And so there's that, and that's very helpful. It's also a little bit out of the blue, but so that's what I find intriguing about it. So clearly why is Superman having this vision? It's about something that he deeply desires. Clearly he wanted it. That's actually one of the things I like about it, Jace. I like the fact that this is Superman. I appreciate those last two panels where Clark is saying to Lois, I got to see it. I got to see him grow up because
I noticed it. Yeah,
right.
I noticed that line. I didn't miss it this time. That stood out to me as well. But yeah, we like you said, we don't have any context for where this story is supposed to fit in. It goes back to the first thing I said. How does this fit into Dark Crisis? Dark Crisis hasn't even gotten started yet.
Well,
but I mean, even if this is, I mean, I still would not say, okay, this is the world that Superman would want. Like it's some sort of whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow story, because Superman would never want. It happens multiple times in the story where they refer to the fact that Earth is the only location in the galaxy that hasn't been conquered by Darkseid. Like Superman himself says those words. The galaxy belongs to Darkseid. That's why he doesn't want John going off Earth. So I mean, this isn't this is what Superman would always dream of and want. He would never want all of the galaxy to be conquered by Darkseid, all of the universe to be conquered by Darkseid, except for Earth.
Well, no, yeah, I get that. Look, I can speculate. My speculation is that Pariah that Pariah has his dream world. Pariah wants to recreate the Infinite Earths and his own home world that was destroyed in the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. And so Pariah has his original world that he wants, and this is maybe some version of a world where some version of Superman can live shielded from Darkseid. I don't know. I'm speculating. And then Aquaman has it, and then maybe other members of the Justice League have it because they happen to die at the hands of Pariah. And because Pariah is getting his wish, maybe some of that is imbuing off that energy, that wish-fulfilling energy is maybe imbuing off on the Justice League. I'm just speculating, but like I said, I got mixed feelings about this. It's kind of cool. What I find interesting is John Kent is obsessed with helping other people on other planets in this war that Darkseid is for the rest of the universe. And as John Kent is getting older, unlike his dad, unlike Kal-El, unlike Clark, he's 15 years old when he first flies off to fight a war against Darkseid. And the big victory for John is finally when it's when he's teen that he returns home, or 17, he returns back, and he's so happy that he finally defeated Orion. He finally defeated Orion, and that was when he was 17 years of age. So, and what I like about it is that this reinforces the fact that John Kent is different than his father. And Lois even says that to Clark, saying, Clark, he's different. He's not you. He has his own way of doing things. It's sort of like reinforcing the fact that this is more socially active, more socially conscious John Kent. Clark didn't want John to go off and fight other people's wars, other people's battles. You got to let them fight them. Whereas John is not afraid to interfere with political affairs. He's not afraid to interfere in the sovereignty of nations. He's not afraid to interfere with other planets. Superman is less reluctant to do that, and or more reluctant to do that. And so I kind of like that aspect of Tom King is sort of he's picking up on what Tom Taylor, this is consistent with Tom Taylor's more socially active, proactive John Kent. And I like that is sort of being addressed here a little bit. Now, whether or not people like that, I don't know, but I agree with you that it's enticing to me. It's enticing and it's interesting. I do think it's a little heavy-handed. I do think that this obsession that John Kent has with flying off to fight wars when he's as young as 14, 15, and he's flying off. I mean, I don't know if that's a healthy thing for a young kid to do, but this is the son of Superman, so it is what it is. So I don't know. I'm intrigued by this, and I'm not sure. I find Tom King to be an interesting writer for this, but maybe the appropriate one because there's a requisite amount of emotion in this. I'm curious to see how other people are going to react to this, and I look forward to people making comments because this isn't Tom King. I don't think he's necessarily destroying a character here or making anyone bad because Tom King has a reputation. You and I are general defenders of Tom King. We've enjoyed his work. I think that I thought this was very, very interesting, but like you said, because we don't know all the background as to what's leading up to this. I have to withhold judgment as to where this is actually kind of going because Tom King generally doesn't play well with others in terms of continuity. And this is related to Dark Crisis, apparently. But for the life of me, like you, I'm not entirely clear as to how that will link up. But like I said, it's the art by Chris Burnham here, I think, is excellent. I really like how it works out. I like when he's 16, he gets this power super space bike. I think that was pretty cool. Tom King hits all the milestones here. Burnham does a great job illustrating it. His use of emotion on facial expressions, from Lois Lane yelling at Clark for not young John Kent for not finding his Robin outfit in the early issues, to Clark being more emotional near the end as his son flies off into space as an adult. It's like I say, it's intriguing. I just wish I kind of knew exactly where this is headed. But I look forward to your comments about Aquaman. What do you think about that?
Yeah, one last thing about the Superman story. I mean, you could be right if we look at it, if it's Pariah that's manipulating and this is, okay, what's your, reach inside Clark's mind and say, what's your biggest wish or your biggest regret or the one thing you wish you could change? And then give him that. The one thing that he wants was to see his son grow up. But you give him that, but then you ruin everything else about that reality. So you let him get to spend time watching his son grow up by making Earth the safe haven, whereas all the rest of the reality universe, galaxy, whatever's all conquered by Darkseid and everything else is screwed.
Mm.
Maybe, if I wanted to speculate.
Yeah.
The Aquaman story, I mean, it's very similar. It's very similar in a lot of ways. Although it's not my favorite, but it does seem to be the way that DC is taking all their heroes now. Superman has a son. Obviously, he always had Supergirl, and you could talk about the bigger family with Connor and Crypto and whatnot. And we all know Batman family's huge at this point, and Aquaman seems to be going that way as well. We have Mira, then we have Jackson Hyde. Now they have a baby. There's Andy, and so everything is a family now. And in a way, I'm not a fan of it because I do like writers to be able to tell simpler stories. And as a reader, I'm just reading about Aquaman. I want to pick up an Aquaman title and just read about Aquaman, and not have to have space in the book for all these other supporting characters. So I don't know if it's working for me completely. That being said, I did enjoy this, glimpse into the future where Aquaman's parents are both still alive and they're renewing their vows, and everybody is, all those people I mentioned are there, including Black Manta, who, kind of on the heels of Aquaman is now no longer a villain. And man, I really hope that doesn't Black Manta was always one of my favorite villains because he was unrepentantly who he was. But it's almost like now that we have Jackson Hyde as a hero and that relationship, and it seems like Black Manta may want to, fix that fractured relationship. The only first thing he's going to have to do to fix it is, stop killing people, stop being a pirate, stop trying to kill Aquaman. So, I thought this was okay. It was an interesting glimpse. Again, no context for it. The title's interesting. Aquaman has everything. And I love the art. Fico Ocio, I think his art style is fantastic. So, but it's clear that this is a dream because Aquaman does wake up at the end and says, I don't have everything yet. I don't yet have my hands around your throat. You think you've beaten us, but better than you have tried. I've been dead before I've come back. So who's he talking to? He's talking to the Great Darkness. I don't know. Guess we'll see. What'd you think?
I share your sentiment. It's Aquaman getting everything on the surface. Aquaman gets everything he ever wanted. Ultimately, this involves a party centered around the wedding of Andy, his daughter Andy, and her non-binary.
It's not Andy's wedding. It's Aquaman's parents are renewing their vows, and Andy's introducing Jess Chambers to her family for the first time and singing at the ceremony.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. I guess I sort of misunderstood that because Jessie goes around and she defeats Charlatan, the villain of Andy, I guess, who has planted bombs around the thing, and it's one sort of great big love fest. Everybody's getting along. And like you said, the most telling thing is, Black Manta with his arm around Jackson Hyde, his son, and they're laughing. That's just unheard of. And the funny thing is, this is written by Brandon Thomas, which I just chuckled because between Brandon Thomas and Chuck Brown, I didn't think that Black Manta would ever have a smile on his face. But here we are. So it must be a dream sequence. But I'm sure they enjoyed I'm sure Brandon Thomas enjoyed scripting this because this is the ending for all concerned. But like you said, for such a happy ending, it's quite jarring on the bottom half of the last page. With Aquaman clearly being self-aware that this is not real, that he doesn't have everything yet, and that even though he knows he's got everything in this dream sequence or whatever he's experiencing, he doesn't have everything yet, and what he wants is probably to get his hand around the throat he's referring to get his hand around. I'm assuming it's Pariah. So Pariah, I'm guessing that whoever is doing this, presumably it's Pariah or some other member of the Dark Army who's got the ability to manipulate or create dream sequences, which could be Eclipso. It could be any member of that Dark Army that has maybe some sort of telepathic powers. I'm speculating, of course, but I'm actually kind of glad as we're reviewing it here and I'm hearing your thoughts and stating my own. I have a better appreciation now. Because this is rubbing me better. It feels better now having reviewed it. The whole thing in perspective, I have a better feeling about it because it just feels so jarring. And I have to say it without having we dive into this issue so cold. This felt so jarring to me. It didn't feel like Dark Crisis. Dark Crisis feels like such a completely different story out of thin air. It doesn't feel connected, and it's sort of taken. I appreciate this review and this discussion because it's like now maybe the pieces are more starting to fit, and I can maybe see it a little bit better. I hope other readers don't have my obtuseness in taking this long to maybe put some of the pieces together.
Yeah, I agree. We do have no context. It's what I said at the beginning. Dark Crisis feels like it hasn't started, so we don't know where this fits. It might have been better to push this out a little bit until Dark Crisis gets going, or it might have been better to have Dark Crisis have something happen in the first two issues, other than a fight between Nightwing and Destro. So, yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Batman Urban Legends number 17. This book's been out that long. We've got 4 stories. They're all standalone. The first one's Batman and the Flash in Cold Shoulders by Ryan Caddy, Gleb Melnikoff on pencils and inks, Scott Hanna also on inks, Luis Guerrero on colors, Troy Petrie does the letters, Batman and Aquaman in The Sea Beyond by writer Joey Esposito, Serge Acuna on art, Alex Guillermes on colors, Pat Broso on letters, Batman and Black Adam in Statecraft, Alex Paknadel is the writer, Amin K. Noelapon is the artist, Jordi Belair on colors, Ariana Mayer on letters, and finally, Batman, the Riddler, the Penguin, and Catwoman in On His Worst Nights from writer Dan Waters, Riley Rosmo is the artist, Trish Mulvihill on colors, and World Design does the letters. I thought the first one felt a little bit like an inventory story in that it could fit in anywhere at any point with Batman and the Flash teaming up. Captain Cold and Ra's al Ghul also team up. So it definitely felt like a classic story, like something you'd see back in A Brave and the Bold from the late 70s or early 80s. So I appreciated that. The Gleb Melnikoff colors I thought worked really well with the Gleb Melnikoff line work I thought worked really, really well with the Luis Guerrero colors. So I enjoyed that one. Even though the characterization for Barry Allen felt a little vanilla, he wasn't quite fleshed out. He felt a little two-dimensional, but for the most part, I enjoyed that story. The Batman and Aquaman story, kind of similar in feel in that it felt a little bit like an old school team up, Brave and the Bold. But what I didn't like the characterization that Joey Esposito, the writer, gave to Mira. She comes across as like overly harsh and
like a bitch.
Like very, I won't go that far, but she was fawning over, like talking to Batman. How dare you talk to Aquaman like that? He's royalty. Blah blah blah. Like it didn't fit any characterization of Mira that I've ever seen in recent time. So yeah, I thought that was horribly misguided, and he sort of tries to redeem it later on, where Aquaman himself says something to Mira about being harsh, and she's like, yeah, maybe I was too harsh on him, but it didn't work. She should have never been like that in the beginning. It makes Mira actually less. It diminishes Mira. She comes across as being like just not very intelligent, very close-minded, almost bigoted in a way. So I didn't like that at all. The story itself was fine. It didn't, break any new ground or anything. I thought the art was fantastic. I thought the colors were fantastic. My favorite story in the book is the Batman and Black Adam story from Alex Paknadel. Gorgeous art by Amin K. Noelapon. Beautiful colors by Jordi Belair. I'm not surprised that we're getting a Black Adam story in Batman Urban Legends. Batman, best-selling character at DC. Black Adam has a movie coming out. Perfect time to cross them over. It's not like they're fighting alongside. This is not a team up. This is something much different. And I thought Alex Paknadel did a fantastic job of showing what a complex past and what a complex story Black Adam has. He's not a hero. He's not a villain. He's got his own responsibilities, his own obligations as the ruler of Kandak, and based on its past and its history and the things that it's gone through. And I just thought that was really interesting. And he tempts Batman at the end of the story with some power, and Batman is actually tempted. So I thought that was really interesting, a great way to showcase what a complex character Black Adam is. Not that I didn't enjoy the first issue of Christopher Priest on Black Adam, and obviously Christopher Priest wrote Deathstroke for a long run, did a fantastic job with another character that lives in the gray area. But man, this really made me want an Alex Paknadel Black Adam series, because he really gets who Black Adam is. He's not so simple of good, bad, good versus evil or whatever. He's much more complex and nuanced character than that. He has the arrogance, which is a downfall, has the quick temper, which is, a negative for his personality, but he also cares about his people very, very much. So Batman the Riddler and Penguin story by Dan Waters. I kind of felt like this was a throwaway story. It's really, really short. It didn't really do much for me. I didn't particularly care for the Riley Rosmo art. I thought the colors were really kind of muddy in a lot of ways. I didn't get it. It's trying to do something clever, probably, and it must have gone over my head. So I don't know. I didn't care for it. So what are your thoughts?
Well, first I hate to be so dismissive of Dan Waters, because I quite like most of what he's written for DC, but I also, on his story he wrote with artist by Riley Rosmo called On His Worst Nights, I didn't understand the point. It missed me too. I didn't get it. I will say though, as a compliment to Riley Rosmo, which might, he's maybe taken a beating on some of his Harley Crane work, but we've respected we've gotten used to his stylistic illustrations. I liked his art here. I thought it was actually pretty good. Dare I say, I think it's an improvement. I find it to be, I thought it was actually fairly decent this time. So kudos to him on that. He continues to improve. My favorite story by far in this entire Batman Urban Legends is the Black Adam story. To me, it's incredible. One of the things that really sort of I say with just so much regret is, my God, this really should have been a story. Alex Paknadel on the story for Batman and Black Adam. This should have been the theme or the storyline for the main Black Adam series. Nothing against Christopher Priest. I think he's telling a unique tale with Black Adam. But I think that with a movie coming out, what's great about this Black Adam and Batman story is that it takes place during Black Rain. DC Comics just released a Black Rain trade paperback compilation of best Black Adam stories, and Black Rain is the essential part of that. And this takes place following the sequences in Black Rain. And all you really need to know is that this takes place just after Black Adam is the leader of Kahndaq. He's a dictator. He's of Kahndaq, and Batman is frustrated. He's in Gotham City. He's frustrated that there's weapon shipping coming through Gotham Harbor from Kahndaq. He wants to go. He wants Black Adam to step down. And Hawkman confronts Batman and says, look, Batman, I thought it was just so well played. I mean, kudos to writer Alex Paknadel for knowing this. Hawkman, he scripts a Hawkman that knows Batman. Hawkman just assumes that Batman, look, I know you probably have a protocol for taking out Black Adam, but let me tell you, it ain't going to work, all right? You might have a protocol to take out Billy Batson, but this is Teth Adam. This is Black Adam. It ain't going to work for him. This guy's been at it. He's immortal. He's thousands of years old. That ain't going to work on him. And Hawkman tells Batman what Black Adam's weakness is, and it's his, he needs to be loved. He's got a craving to be loved. Black Adam needs to be loved. That's his weakness. And Batman utilizes it to such great effect. And the battle between, Batman sort of entices or lures Teth Adam, Black Adam, to saying Shazam and assuming his Teth Adam form. And then they have a fight, mano a mano. And ultimately, just the revelations here where Batman tells Black Adam, your power isn't a deterrent, it's a provocation, and your enemies may not be able to scratch you. You're powerful, but they can hurt your people, and your people will love you, but you got to protect what you love. If you love your people, protect. That's me paraphrasing, but you can see the evolution. What I liked about it is I could see the evolution of why Black Adam became, why he went from villain to anti-hero to hero. You could see it. And there's such a good, in this short story, I thought Packnell did such a good job of showing the evolution of Black Adam, realizing the importance that, I mean, yeah, he has people who loved him, and you protect what you love, and then you can understand why Black Adam slowly became more of a hero and less, he started off as sort of a benevolent dictator, or perhaps a dictator, then a benevolent dictator. And then we know in the pages of Christopher Priest's Black Adam that perhaps there's more democratic reforms that are taking place. So I actually thought that this story works well with maybe the story that Christopher Priest wants to tell, even though they're very different and different timelines. I thought it worked, and I really liked it. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people are going to miss it because it's smack dab in the middle of these other stories, which are just inconsequential. I share your sentiment about the Flash story. What I find interesting here is that it purports to be perhaps one of the first meetings between Mr. Freeze and Captain Cold, a Captain Cold, Mr. Freeze team up against Batman and the Flash. I thought it was well done. I thought that the writer Ryan Cady did a good job nailing the characters of Leonard Snart and Victor Freeze, the differences in their character, Snart being not a killer, Victor Freeze is a killer, and he's willing to go that extra length. I love the extra length to kill. Victor Freeze sort of teasing Snart about only being a civil engineer while he has a PhD, and they got different technologies of their freeze technology, and I thought it was sort of a little tropey wrap up to the plot line, but I thought it worked. I thought it worked reasonably well. The Aquaman and Mira storyline, I echo your sentiments about Mira. I thought that the writer Joey Esposito didn't quite get Mira, but this is an early on story. This takes place alongside, continuity wise, just after the events Detective Comics 475, which I didn't Google it. What's that?
Yeah, the Joker Fish storyline.
Yeah, so I'm not sure how old that is, how many decades old that is, but I'm assuming it's probably been a few years. So, but I thought, again, I thought it worked, and it was fun, and and I actually like that. I like editors' notes like that. Editors' notes, DC, don't be afraid to do more of that stuff to give us readers us long-time readers some sort of connection to where this story takes place. Because I was openly wondering if it wasn't for some of these editors' notes or some indication in the time I'm where it worked, I wouldn't have enjoyed these stories as much. But overall, I thought this was it was saved because of the Black Adam story. I just wish I would have liked to have seen that as a Batman Black Adam one-shot. I thought it would have been great because, especially how it tied in, how Batman said he went to Kandak because he wanted to see how he would be like without family. And Batman suggests the only reason he's different than Black Adam or Teth Adam is because he has family, where at that time Teth Adam did not. And so I thought that was a really good way to tie in DC's biggest star, Batman, with the biggest up and coming DC star, at least in the movies, Black Adam. So I thought it worked well.
Yeah, Joker Fish is from 1977, if I'm not mistaken. So
wow,
more than a few decades.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Wonder Woman 789. This is The Villainy of Our Fears, Part 3, written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan, Emmanuel Lupacchino and Eduardo Panseca on pencils, Wade Von Grobiger and Julio Ferreira on inks, Tamra Bonvillain on colors, and Pat Brosso on letters. What did you think?
Man, you know what? I had a lot of fun with this issue. This issue, The Villainy of Our Fears, Part 3. This is one of those issues where I can allow myself get really depressed at how far Wonder Woman has fallen, or I can just have fun with this review. So I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose to have fun with this review. And I think it's awesome that Wonder Woman went from saving the multiverse to battling the vile villains of milk, the people who sell this evil milk drink. as Siegfried said in this, vile milk drinkers. That's who the enemy is here. Villainy Incorporated employing the use of vile milk drinkers, in the words of Siegfried. And it's the characters in this series. Dr. Cisco, he's teamed up with Dolos, the Duke of Deception. And Dolos, the Duke of Deception, I had to Google this guy because I knew I got him somewhere in my, when's the last time I heard of this guy? It was actually in Legends of Wonder Woman, which was an alternate universe tale by Della De Hoy. I forget her name. I think that's her name. There was The Legend of Wonder Woman was the last time Duke of Deception was in a comic book. It was a great series. It even was nominated for an Eisner. It was an alternate universe where Wonder Woman's first villain that she encounters was Dolos, the Duke of Deception. And here he's back. Normally before that, you're looking back to the 70s and into the Silver Age. And Dr. Psycho is utilizing his powers, powered through the Duke of Deception, to try to really to pull one over on Wonder Woman. To what end? I don't really know. I'm not sure. Apparently, the big deal.
Misogyny.
Yeah, misogyny. Like, I mean, again, I'm going to have fun with this. I'm not going to, in all seriousness, this is so silly. It's funny. It's so silly. I mean, Dr. Poison. Every scene that Dr. Poison's in, she's holding up a needle like a nefarious evil person. And then there's we got Dr. Psycho himself, who's always got the shit-eating grin on his face, and he's creating all these illusions, and he's got this magic mirror where his bizarro version of Wonder Woman that he calls Sweetheart holds up a magic mirror that he focuses his mental powers through, so Dolos has more powers so that he can defeat Steve Trevor. And Steve Trevor ends up breaking his leg, and Siegfried declares he's going to protect Steve Trevor, his newfound companion, against the vile milk drinkers. That's an exact quote. This is parody. This is absolute parody. And if you read this with parody in mind, you're going to enjoy this comic. Straight up. Now, I mean, look, I had fun with it, but I have to say how far the mighty have fallen. It's really hard for me, not a part of me. It's sort of like the Thor Love and Thunder movie. I wanted it to be a more serious movie, but it was all comedy. It's still a fun comedy, but I was expecting a little bit more serious to it. So doesn't mean it's bad. It's just mean I was expecting something different. And this Wonder Woman here, this is parody to me. I just want her to take, I want more serious villains here. I want a little bit more verisimilitude, because this is outright just absolute silliness and nonsense. Wonder Woman goes from saving the multiverse to battling vile milk drinkers, literally. This is, and I said before, Becky Cloonan and Michael W. Conrad, they're also writing battles. I said before my comments about them writing Batgirls is they seem to have this propensity for writing silly things that would think almost be for all ages, and then they intersperse it with kind of serious topics like misogyny and sexual, innuendo and love triangles, and that's all well and good, but I'm not okay. So is it parody or isn't it? And don't get me, again, I choose to have a sense of humor about this, but I personally wish that they just I'm not getting the impression. I say this with great respect. I'm not getting the impression that they really are just, they're not really taking this all that seriously. Because this Wonder Woman even Wonder Woman almost doesn't really seem to take this all this seriously. And even Dolos, all the villains here, every single villain in here just shows up. There's no development of these villains. Dr. Poison shows up. We know nothing about it. Professor Calculus, no development. Dolos, Duke of Deception, is mentioned at the end of the last issue. Shows up, no development. And Dr. Psycho, we still don't know who Dr. Psycho works for. We still have no idea. Everything is just sort of like throwing darts at the board. It's like the Clunrads are trying to get every major Wonder Woman villain they can on the page, and I don't feel it's really going anywhere. And there's fun to add here, but I really don't feel they're taking their job seriously. I don't. I mean, this is parody to me. This is absolute parody. And I guess there's some fun in that because, like I said, I could, if, put a couple more beer in me, I can have a lot of fun talking about this issue, how nonsensical it is. But, I mean, it's just, I'm just not clear exactly what they're trying to say or what they're trying to do here. When you think of where they started off, Wonder Woman went on issues of getting back to man's world. only to fight vile milk drinkers. I mean, this is, I don't know. I don't know. Help me out, Jace. I'll stop talking.
Yeah, well, I don't in any way, shape, or form think that they're not taking their job seriously. I think that they're putting their all into this. Unfortunately, I think it's a little scattershot, and it's not working. So, I wouldn't say that they're not trying. I think they're trying. I think the failure of it is that it's not focused enough. It's maybe like you said, they're trying to pay homage to things that have come in the past, like Dolos, um, Doctor Psycho, and um, Steve Trevor and Etta Candy, and then this character they created Sigmund, and it's just it's too much. There's not enough focus. So then something's got to fall by the wayside, and what's falling by the wayside, unfortunately, is character development. Like you mentioned, these characters just show up out of the blue. Now, granted, while Wonder Woman was hopping around through these different realms of mythology, we saw Doctor Psycho, but you're right. We don't know who he's working for. He's very much a cartoon villain, as are these vile milk drinkers, because they hate Wonder Woman because she represents everything that's female in the world, and these are misogynists and yeah. So again, to your point of trying to take on some serious topics, but there's a juvenile aspect to the story as well. It's the same issue with Batgirls, so hopefully they can find the tone that they want and maybe pare down the characters. Even the when I say pare down the characters, I don't just mean on the villain side, on the supporting cast side as well. Like, let's just vote. Like, I just want to read about Diana and maybe Steve, or Diana and Etta Candy. Just give me one supporting character. Or you want to use Sigmund? Fine, let's develop Diana and Sigmund's relationship. Let's focus here. Let's focus up, because it's too all over the place. And like it's no different, when you try to be good at 70 things. Nobody's going to be good at 70 things. Focus on one thing, master that. Focus on one or two, get really good at that, as opposed to trying to throw all these darts at the board and see what hits the bullseye. It's not working. So, all right. Up next, we have Rogues Book 3, Assault on Gorilla City. This is from writer Joshua Williamson. It's drawn by an artist named Leo Max, colored by Jason Wordie, lettered by Hassan Otsman El Howell. I enjoyed this. I thought it was fantastic. The art has been great throughout. And the only thing that I'll say, in addition to that, is that it goes about as well as you would expect it, in terms of, hey, it's the Rogues, and they're planning a complicated heist in a foreign land where they're surrounded by their enemies. It goes about as well as you would expect it to. I feel like Joshua Williamson has as good an understanding of who the Rogues are, especially Captain Cold, Leonard Snart, as any writer who's ever worked on The Flash. Like, he knows the Rogues in and out. And so that really allows him to tell the story with a real degree of authenticity for the Rogues. And I really, really enjoy it. The art by Leo Max, I think it suits the tone of the story. Kind of this, last hurrah, rundown group of villains trying to make one last score. It feels at times a little like the world that Leo Max is rendering is it's kind of running down. It's tired. This is a tired world, and the color work kind of suits that tone as well, because the colors are muted. They're not bright colors that pop off the page, and so I got to give a shout out to Jason Wordie for that as well. I really, really enjoyed this. One issue to go. Can't wait to see how it all wraps up. But yeah, the shit hits the fan exactly as you would expect it to. You can't read this if you're any sort of longtime reader of The Flash and know who the Rogues are. You can't read this in any way and be surprised at how screwed up everything gets for the Rogues. They are, as always, they are often their own worst enemy. So, what do you think?
This is, I want to be absolutely clear. This is hands down my pick of the week. This is, nothing comes close to this week. This was a rough week for DC, but this is definitely one of the bright spots. This is, if this was a TV movie, this would be Ocean's 7, I believe. 7 characters, I think. We got Leonard Snark, Captain Cold, Lisa Snart, the Golden Glider, James Jesse as Dexter, Ben Turner, the Bronze Tagger, Frankie Kane, Magenta, Mick Rory, Heatwave, and Evan McCullough as the Mirror Master. Those are the guys that are pulling off the heist, the ultimate heist of robbing Gorilla Grodd, located in the underbelly somewhere in the Gorilla City is this huge cache of gold bars that they are going to rob, and they infiltrate Gorilla City in this issue. This third issue was so much happened in this issue. We've got action, we've got betrayal, we've got love, we've got death. We got 2 members of Ocean 7. What do you call it, the girl? Lose their lives here. I don't even want to ruin it for people. I want people to pick this up. The evolution of Leonard Snart's character, and as you said, Joshua Wilson, he knows these characters. And, you know, when they make it in, and with the help of the Mirror Master, they get in there and they steal these gold bars with the help of the Mirror Master's powers and Magenta's powers, which comes at a great sacrifice. And then Gorilla Grodd is married and has a son, and how that plays into the things that go wrong, because of course they go wrong. We're talking about, this is a rogue story after all. Everything's go ahead in this issue. This is by far the best of the first 3 issues. Everything comes to a head here, and I'm so curious to see how things wrap up. But all the action here goes up to 11 here. So much happens. So much is at stake, and in particular the character work. You talked about Joshua Williamson. Leonard Snart is somebody he gave up being Captain Cold quite a while ago. He's coming back for one score. It's quite apparent here that he's willing to, he purports, you think of the Rogues, you think of a family, and you think of Captain Cold as having a family. And you think of Captain Cold, I was disappointed in Captain Cold here. In a good way. I mean, this is good character work. Meaning that I thought that, the way Williamson scripted him, he put his own selfishness ahead of his own family. Whereas I know sometimes in the Rogues Gallery, Snart, I gave him more credit. He seemed to have more of a code of honor here. I think Snart has become an old and bitter old man, where he's put aside, and he's become this is the worst. He's become a bitter old man, and he's forgotten the importance of family in this story, and he's using his friends for his own selfish needs, whereas he used to have more of a code of conduct. That's one thing you could always rely on the Rogues. The Rogues had their own code, and I couldn't help but think, in my view, that Williamson very masterfully scripts a Leonard Snark that's maybe lost touch with himself a little bit in terms of what's, at the end of the day, what the Rogues always had was each other. And this is a story of the Rogues coming together. But when they come together and those ties get frayed and those bonds of friendship aren't what they used to be, that lies at the crux of this story that Williamson was so well. And it really comes into play in this issue. And so many moving parts, so many ridiculous coincidences that come into play. Like I said, this was a very much a joy to read. High recommend for this issue. This issue alone, I'm really curious to see how this is going to resolve itself. I've got some theories, but I don't want to say what they are. But I think this is one where I can't say this for all about DC, but this is one Black Label series where I will be picking up in hardcover. This particular issue sold it for me, and I echo your sentiments on Leo Max on the art. Coloring is great. The subdued nature of the coloring, the art, everything. It works very, very well, particularly with the scenes where they're in the room showing all the gold and ultimately the sacrifice of Magenta. I thought it worked very, very well. And Williamson, he impresses me. And good Lord, Joshua Williamson, that guy's a workaholic. I mean, he's almost single-handedly keeping DC afloat in terms of what the type of quality stories that I'm enjoying most from DC. A lot of them have Joshua Williamson's name attached to it. So kudos to him.
Yeah, he's doing a fantastic job. I've been a little critical of him only because I really want Dark Crisis to get moving, and it feels like it hasn't. But yeah, he's firing on all cylinders here for sure. All right, last book we're going to talk about in detail: Dreams and Nightmares. The script is by Tom Taylor along with Nicole Maines. If that name sounds familiar, she played Dreamer on some CW
You
show.
mean Son of Kal-El, don't you? What did you say?
Yeah, is that?
You,
Yeah, Superman, Son of Kal-El.
you said Dreams and Nightmares. You mean
Yeah,
okay?
that's the name of the story. Dreams and Nightmares.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah, that's
fair
the
enough.
title of the issue. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tom Taylor, Nicole Maines, Clayton Henry on art, Marcelo Maiello and Matt Herms on colors. Letters by Dave Sharp. What do you think?
Uh, I thought that the favorite part of this issue for me was the dream sequence. This issue, as you said, this is the dynamic debut of the Dreamer, who, full disclosure for myself, this is really my first exposure to Dreamer because I frankly, I never watched the whatever CW show she was on. I stopped watching CW because I needed to preserve my mental health. But in any event, I'm happy to report that I don't mind this. I actually like Dreamer. I thought she was a good enough character. They link her to the Legion of Superheroes. She's an Altorian, and Dream Girl in the Legion of Superheroes is an Altorian. So I thought that was a nice connection to connect this Dream Girl character to her. I thought it was well done. I also thought that I will give credit here that Tom Taylor introduces Dreamer very quickly. I like the sort of almost compressed nature of the storytelling. We're not spending a lot of time with taking 5 or 6 issues to introduce a character. Dreamer just shows up in the Fortress of Solitude, and she basically warns. She's there to basically warn John Kent as to what will happen if he doesn't stop Henry Bendix. Last issue, it was revealed that Jay Nakamura's identity was revealed to the world as the leader of truth. Now Henry Bendix knows that Jay Nakamura is the leader of truth. He knows that he's the boyfriend of John Kent. And so things are really ramping up. The world's media is aware of it now, so there's politics is involved. Social media, there's a social media sort of onslaught against Jay Nakamura and indirectly against John Kent, Superboy as well. Remember, of course, everyone knows that John Kent is Superman, son of Kal-El. Now they know his boyfriend Jay Nakamura is the leader of Truth, which is an organization that in some political circles in the DC universe is operating on its own and with fake news and everything else. It might be perceived as a terrorist organization. Henry Bendix is trying to ferment that negative publicity along with negative publicity against the heroes. And here we discover that Dreamer has as a vision of a possible future where all the heroes of the DC universe are ultimately killed by Henry Bendix. And there's it's almost like a mini story within a story that I really enjoyed, involving the death of starts off with the death of Joker to lure the Justice League into Gotham City with this Joker gas to seemingly kill all the citizens. Superboy, John Kent arrives, sucks up all the gas that is laced with kryptonite that ultimately kills him. Meanwhile, the Justice League are all killed, etc., etc. Great art, great scenes by Clayton Henry. Clayton Henry on the art here really sold it. I thought he did a really good job. Graphic scenes of deaths of various, I shouldn't say too graphic, but impactful scenes of the death of various members of the Justice League. And with Henry Bendix finally getting his revenge in this sequence on John Kent. And of course, since they know what the future holds, they know what they have to stop. And it ultimately ends with Henry Bendix realizing that Jay Nakamura is the leader of truth. And it ends with showing Jay Nakamura's mother, who is a captive who's actually still alive. We thought she was killed. She's still alive and is held captive by Henry Bendix. And so Jay's mom is still alive. And so there's a lot at stake here. Henry Bendix still has The Rising. The Rising is still an agenda that has yet to see fruition. Jay Nakamura's mom's alive. There's more character work here. There's, for fans of the John Kent, Jay Nakamura shipping, there's, John Kent is accused of damseling Jay Nakamura, wanting to protect him. So there's some, that there's more of the bonding and the affection between John Kent and Jay Nakamura is on full display, and Dreamer has some fun with that and teases the two of them. And so there's decent character work here, great dream sequence. You know, we now know what's at stake. We know Henry Bendix is a force to be reckoned with because we know what he's capable of because of the dream sequence. I personally really like this issue, even though it was a dream sequence. I shouldn't say I really like the issue. I'll say I liked it better than most because we're getting a little bit more action. Even if it's a dream sequence, I feel that we've gotten almost, dare I say, I can't believe I'm saying this, almost too much character work, too much in the previous 12 issues. I kind of like this issue being a little bit more action, even if it is a dream sequence. So I kind of like that there's a pushing of that envelope here. And kudos to co-writer Tom Taylor, kudos to Maines, because I think she co-writes it with him. Yeah, Nicole Maines is the co-writer with Tom Taylor. She's the actress that plays Dreamer, and so overall, I was actually pleasantly surprised. I mean, full disclosure, I was not expecting much of this issue. I was prepared to be disappointed, but I was actually pleasantly surprised. So, what do you think?
Why were you prepared to be disappointed?
Well, because I actually thought this was going to be just like another glorified Pride issue. About just and to be quite frank, this has nothing to do with that. This is just good story, good character work. In fact, I read an interview with Nicole Maines. She talked about the importance of focusing on story, not sexual orientation, and that's her goal working with Tom Taylor, and it shows here. There's no not that it matters if it's mentioned, but this is good character work, good story. We don't, we shouldn't be focusing on the sexuality of the character. We should just be focusing on the quality of their character, what this story brings out. And so I guess that's my own cynicism, that I came into this story with, and that's on me. But like I said, this was a really good surprise, and full compliments to Nicole Maines. I think she did a fantastic job. And if again, I would still like. There are issues I have with the slowness. I'd like to see the plot line progress a little bit faster, but this is better than I thought it was, and it just goes to show you that shame on me. But I got no problem putting my foot in the mouth. This is better than I thought it was going to be.
All right, fair enough. I didn't have any I didn't think it would not be anything but what it was, which is a Tom Taylor, Son of Kal-El issue. Just because they were bringing Dreamer in, I didn't think it would be over the top. I mean, it's always been somewhat of a political comic in terms of Tom Taylor is going to explore societal issues in his writing because that's what he does, and I appreciate that. So I thought it did a fantastic job. I thought that the characterization for Dreamer was really interesting. Didn't come out with a lot of bluster or overconfidence or anything like that. It's clear that she knows she has a lot to learn about being a hero and about using her powers, and she was humble about that and sort of rightly self-aware. And I love that Nicole Maines, the actress that played Dreamer on the CW shows, had a chance to give her input and flesh that out. So I think that's really interesting. I would like to see more of that. I know that the actor that played Luke Fox in the Batwoman show wrote, I think his name's Camrus Johnson. He wrote one of the Batwing stories that we got in Batman Urban Legends earlier this year. So I really like that because as an actor, part of your craft is to really get in the mind of the character, become the character. So who better to help flesh out that character? Plus, they may have their own fans that they can, bring to the comics, can shine a spotlight. Hey, I helped co-write this issue, pick it up, and maybe we'll bring new people into to comics that way. So yeah, I thought this issue was fine. I mean, I still have sort of the same issues with the series that I've had from the beginning. I don't feel like John has earned the right to be called Superman, but sort of what we suspected last issue with the revelation of Jay Nakamura's identity as the leader of truth is already playing out. So a bit predictable in that way. So I guess we'll see what's going to happen. I enjoyed the dream sequence as well. I really appreciated that. A very short timeline, right? Like you're talking about, you want things to move a little faster. She didn't have this dream and say, yeah, this is, could come to pass at some point. She's like, this is in the next week. So it definitely added some stakes to the story. And maybe that'll cause the pacing to pick up a little bit. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Clayton Henry art is Clayton Henry art. I mean, he's a fantastic artist. So he does have a certain look about it, especially the way he draws faces. But I'm a fan of his style, so I didn't mind it. I thought it was good. All right, that's going to do it for the issues we're going to talk about in detail. There are a few other books out from DC this week that we want to talk about, though. There are some reprints. So we've got from the DC versus Vampires corner of the DCU, I guess you'd say, two different editions that are reprinting 3 issues. So we have DC versus Vampires, the Coffin edition trade paperback, which collects issues 1 through 3. And then we have DC versus Vampires Crypt edition trade paperback, which collects issues 4 through 6. So they each collect 3. And if you're curious what's been going on, you want to get caught up, it's a great way to do it, relatively inexpensively. I did reread them just because it was right there in front of me. I'm like, we're 7 issues in now. Let me go back and reread these first 6 issues because they're right here on my screen as I'm reading everything else. Maybe I've been too harsh on DC versus Vampires. Maybe I'll like it more than I did previously. So it did refresh my memory, obviously, with things that have gone on. I have a better understanding, and it's fresh in my mind what's happened. I don't like it anymore. It's still I still have the same complaints about it. But I will say that if you just read that main series and don't bother with any of the rest tangential stuff, at least the timeline makes more sense. So,
yeah.
Anyway, in addition to that, we have another poster portfolio this week. This time it's from J.H. Williams III with a lot of his Batwoman work. So I'm going to seriously give thought to picking that up, although I don't have really room for it anywhere to display. But we'll see. We also have the Injustice Year Zero Complete Collection trade paperback. If you're a fan of the Injustice game or the Injustice comics that Tom Taylor wrote, that is coming out as well. And then finally, we have the hardcover of Beast Boy Loves Raven, which is part of that DC young adult line, written by Cami Garcia with art by Gabrielle Piccolo. So that does it for your DC books this week. Rocky's fave was far and away Rogues. Mine, I got to give the nod to that Dark Crisis Superman story. I just loved it, man. I loved seeing father and son. So I got to give it to that. The Aquaman story was fine, but just based on the strength of that Superman story, with the honorable mention to that Batman Black Adam story in Urban Legends, I thought that was really, really good as well. So, all right. Anything to add as we're wrapping up here, Rocky?
Well, we would be lax if we didn't mention by far the most important key appearance of the week was Lula LaRue, the sword swallower of Batgirls. That's got to be a collector's item right there and there. So
trying to block that out of my mind.
And the vile milk monsters of Wonder Woman 789.
so bad watching her reach down her gullet to pull a sword out. It's terrible.
Yeah.
All right, that's gonna do it, everybody. Again, apologies. Sorry, Rocky's mic was kind of going crazy there at times. We'll get that figured out for next time. So that's going to do it. Don't forget to head over to YouTube if you're listening to us on the audio only podcast. Head over to YouTube, do a search for Rocky's channel, Comic Space Boom ! Subscribe, like this video, comment, ring the notification bell. You guys know what to do. Conversely, if you're checking us out on YouTube, make sure you go and do a search for the Comic Source wherever you get your podcasts and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the rest of the content. So that's going to do it for this episode. We appreciate the support as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you later.